A sudden outburst shatters BTS's harmony when Jimin lashes out at Jungkook. Taehyung's hauntingly calm response reveals a deeper truth none saw coming. "Are you even taking this seriously, Jungkook?" The words cracked like thunder through the rehearsal hall, silencing the clatter of sneakers and the hum of fluorescent lights. Jimin's voice echoed off the mirrored walls, raw, sharp, and drenched in something deeper than anger. Every staff member froze. Even the music that had been playing seconds before seemed to vanish, leaving a vacuum of tension that gripped the room like ice. Jungkook, sweat-slicked and breathless, stood still under the glaring light, his jaw tightening. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The way his fists clenched at his sides, the tremble of his lower lip spoke louder than any protest. Taehyung, sitting on the edge of the stage with a towel around his neck, didn't move. His expression didn't flicker, not even a blink. He simply watched. The silence held for a beat too long. Jimin took a step forward, voice lowered now, trembling with something dangerously close to grief. "You think just showing up is enough? That you can coast on talent while the rest of us bleed for every second on that stage?" Jungkook's chest rose and fell rapidly. The muscles in his throat twitched. "Hyung, I didn't mean." "You never mean to," Jimin snapped. "But here we are, again!" Manager Kim instinctively took a step forward, eyes wide with panic. "Jimin, maybe we should take 5. Cool down." "No," Jimin said, his voice steady now, too calm. He needs to hear this. And then, without warning, Taehyung stood up. His movement was slow, deliberate. The air shifted, not just among the staff, but in the very atmosphere of the room. Even the dancers on standby stopped breathing. He walked to the center of the floor between Jimin and Jungkook and looked at both of them with unreadable calm. Then he spoke, voice soft, but laced with eerie clarity. "Do you think yelling will fix what's already broken?" The weight of those words dropped like lead. Jimin blinked, stunned. Jungkook looked like he'd been punched in the gut. Taehyung didn't wait for a response. He turned to Jungkook, eyes sharp but devoid of judgment. "You're not here," he said quietly. "Your body is, your voice is, but you left weeks ago." Then he turned to Jimin. "And you've been waiting for him to come back, haven't you?" No one moved. The truth of it buzzed in the air, painful and undeniable. Jimin opened his mouth, then closed it again. His eyes dropped to the floor. "He promised," he said softly, barely audible. "He said he was okay." Taehyung stepped back slowly. He lead. That broke the room. It wasn't about choreography anymore, or professionalism, or even teamwork. It was something older, something fractured behind the public smiles and stage lights. Something that had been festering for months beneath the glossy perfection. Later, when the room had emptied and only the 3 of them remained, Jimin sat on the cold wooden floor, head bowed, hands in his lap. Jungkook leaned against the wall, face pale, eyes haunted. Taehyung lit a cigarette near the open emergency exit, the smoke curling in the dusky air, though he never took a drag. He just watched the tip burn slowly, red and alive. "I didn't mean to fall apart," Jungkook whispered eventually. "No one ever means to," Taehyung replied. "But you did, and we're all still trying to pretend we don't see the pieces." Jimin looked up, tears shining but unshed. "Then what now?" Taehyung crushed the cigarette beneath his heel. The ember snuffed out with a hiss. "Now we stop pretending." Outside, the summer rain began to fall, soft at first, then harder, washing away the sweat, the dust, the illusion. Inside, 3 voices, once seamless in harmony, sat in silence, trying to remember how to be whole. "You should have walked away when you still had the chance." The words, venom-laced and bitter, came not from Jimin or Taehyung but from Namjoon. It was 3:42 a.m., and the dance studio was dimly lit by only a single overhead bulb. The scent of sweat, dust, and electrical heat from the speakers lingered heavy in the air. Jungkook stood frozen by the mirrored wall, eyes bloodshot, hoodie damp with perspiration. Across from him, Namjoon, leader, protector, philosopher, had just dropped his mask, and his fury was terrifying in its quiet precision. I tried to keep the peace, for everyone's sake, Namjoon said, voice low, shaking slightly as if barely containing what had been suppressed for months. But your silence? Your distance? It's killing us! You're not the golden maknae anymore, Jungkook. You're just a ghost walking around with a microphone. Jungkook opened his mouth, but no words came out. His fingers twitched at his side. I didn't mean to be. That's the thing, Namjoon snapped, taking a step forward. You never mean to, but you still do it. You still hurt people. You still disappear when we need you most. Do you know what it did to Jimin? Watching you fade like that? Jungkook's voice cracked. I didn't know how to ask for help. That's bullshit. You didn't want to ask. You were too proud or too afraid. The door creaked behind them. Yoongi stood there, eyes shadowed, a towel draped over his shoulder like a soldier with a tattered flag. This isn't helping, he said quietly. No, Namjoon growled. But it's real. Jungkook backed up against the mirror. His reflection stared at him young, broken, older than he remembered. I didn't think anyone would understand. We're not strangers, Namjoon said. We're your brothers. We've seen you at your worst. Hell, we lived through your worst, and we stayed. Taehyung appeared behind Yoongi, calm as ever, though his eyes were stormy. We didn't just stay. We fought for you, covered for you when you missed rehearsals, lied to the press when you looked dead behind your eyes. You were collapsing, and instead of asking for a hand, you dragged us all down with you. Jungkook's chest rose and fell, breath coming fast now, eyes rimmed with unshed tears. I never asked you to lie. You didn't have to, Jimin said, walking in from the hallway, his voice hoarse, raw. We did it because we loved you. The silence that followed was deafening. And then Jimin's expression shifted, tightening, sharpening, his voice like broken glass. But maybe that was our mistake. Those words were daggers. They sank deep. Jungkook looked like someone had ripped the ground from beneath his feet. You don't mean that. Don't tell me what I mean, Jimin hissed, walking closer. You think this is about practice? About missed notes? It's about the way you looked me in the eyes and lied, said you were fine, said you could handle it, and then disappeared for days with no explanation. You think you're the only one carrying pain? We all bleed behind the stage. You don't get to wall yourself off and act like you're the only one hurting. I was scared, Jungkook shouted finally. The echo bounced off the walls. I didn't know what was happening to me. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't breathe. Every time I went on stage, I felt like I was choking. And I couldn't tell anyone because I didn't want to be the one who ruined everything. And now look where we are, Taehyung murmured. The lights flickered. A storm had rolled in outside, thunder rumbling low in the distance, like the earth itself was holding its breath. I would have understood, Jimin said, softer now, though the hurt in his voice hadn't faded. If you just said something, even one word. Jungkook crumpled to the floor, the weight of it all finally too much. I didn't know how. And that's when Hosok entered, silent, pale, holding his phone. Guys, he whispered, eyes wide, voice shaking. We have a problem. Everyone turned. He handed his phone to Namjoon. The screen was filled with headlines, dozens of them, screenshots, videos. BTS internal fight leaked? Jimin caught yelling at Jungkook, who was recording. There, in crystal clear audio, was the moment from yesterday's rehearsal. Jimin's voice, the shouting, Taehyung's eerie response. Someone had been recording and sold it. The staff room, hidden phones, a traitor. Yoongi cursed under his breath. How did this get out? Namjoon was already on the phone with management. His voice dropped into business mode, sharp and authoritative. Shut it down. Call Hybe security. We need a trace on the original upload. But Jimin just stood still, staring at the screen. I said those things, he whispered. The world heard them, without context. Jungkook finally stood, dazed. We'll fix it. No, Jimin said, broken. We won't. The room felt like it was caving in. Years of trust, Brotherhood, loyalty now at risk of being devoured by scandal and betrayal. Not from enemies, not from Antis, but from within. The following hours blurred. Statements were drafted, lawyers were called, the building was locked down, Hybe's PR team scrambled, but none of that mattered. Not really. Because the damage wasn't just publicity, it was personal. That night, the group was forced into emergency isolation in one of their private dorms. The mood was suffocating, conversations were sparse, trust was thin. At 2 a.m., Jimin knocked on Jungkook's door. It opened slowly. "I'm not here to fight," Jimin said. Jungkook nodded and stepped aside. He looked hollow, eyes darker than usual. They sat on the floor, knees close but not touching. "I meant every word," Jimin said. "But I didn't want the world to hear it like that." "I didn't mean to collapse like this," Jungkook whispered. "But I did." Jimin studied him for a moment. "Then start over, not just with us, with yourself." Jungkook gave a broken laugh. "I don't even know who I am anymore." And Jimin, for the first time in weeks, offered a small, real smile. "Then let's find out. Together." Behind the wall, Taehyung leaned his head back against the cool plaster, closing his eyes. Outside, the sky was beginning to lighten. But inside, something still trembled in the shadows. Because none of them knew yet someone from the inside wanted them to fall apart, and the first crack was only the beginning. And far away, in a quiet apartment lit only by a computer screen, someone hit upload on another file. An even darker video, one not even the members remembered being recorded. And this time, it wasn't just words. It was proof. Proof that one of them had broken something sacred and hadn't told anyone. Yet, you knew. The voice was low, razor-thin and cold like a blade dragged across ice. Taehyung stood at the kitchen doorway, arms crossed over his chest, watching Yoongi as the older man scrolled through the just-leaked footage on a laptop. Yoongi didn't flinch. He didn't look away from the screen. I had my suspicions. "And you didn't tell us?" Taehyung's tone cracked just slightly, an earthquake trembling beneath a glacier. The air in the dorm was suffocating, every light dimmed except for the glow of the laptop and the street lamps outside. Rain slapped against the windows, hard and unrelenting. "I wasn't sure what I was looking at," Yoongi said evenly. "And I didn't want to believe it. Would you have?" The footage playing showed a hallway grainy security cam footage, time-stamped 2 months ago. A conversation between Jungkook and a woman none of them recognized. Her face blurred, but her voice unmistakably real. Whispering, laughing, then crying. Then Jungkook frantic, desperate. The words on the screen were hard to make out through the echo, but the subtitles that someone had added were damning. "You said no one would find out. I'm not ready. They won't forgive me if they know what I did." Taehyung's fingers dug into his arms. "Who is she?" Yoongi finally looked up. "We don't know, not yet." Taehyung walked in slowly, the wooden floors creaking under his bare feet. "And what is it he did, Hyung?" Yoongi closed the laptop with a soft snap. "That's the question, isn't it?" In the living room, Jimin paced in circles like a lion trapped in a shrinking cage. Namjoon sat on the couch, phone pressed to his ear, voice calm but thin with exhaustion. "I don't care what it costs. Find the original uploader. Trace the IP. I want names." Jungkook stood by the window, arms crossed, face expressionless. The others were still reeling. From the first video, from the storm of articles and speculation. But this second video, this was different. This wasn't just anger or pain or tension among brothers. This was a secret, buried deep, and now clawing its way out. Jimin stopped pacing. "Say something." Jungkook blinked. "There's nothing to say." "The hell there isn't!" Jimin exploded. "You said you didn't remember anything. You swore. And now this? Who is she? What are you hiding?" "I'm not hiding." "You're lying, Jungkook!" Jimin's voice cracked into a shout. "You always do this. You lie, you shut down, and then you leave us to clean up the mess while the world watches." Taehyung walked in behind them. "He's scared," he said softly. Jimin turned. "Don't defend him." "I'm not." Taehyung said, walking straight up to Jungkook, meeting his eyes. I'm trying to understand him, because if we don't understand what happened in that hallway, this all ends. Jungkook's eyes flickered, something behind them flicked, like a dying flame. She was a trainee, he said finally. A silence followed that made time itself feel like it stopped breathing. Namjoon lowered his phone. What? Jungkook's voice was barely above a whisper. Her name was Sool. We met during a joint session at Hybe's practice rooms. She was struggling, and I... And you what? Jimin asked, stepping closer. Helped her? Encouraged her? Lied to us while doing it? Jungkook didn't respond. Namjoon rubbed his face, looking suddenly 10 years older. What did you do, Jungkook? She was in trouble with her company. Her contract, it was bad. She asked me to help her get out. I didn't know how, but I told her I would. Yoongi and Hosok had entered by then, quiet as ghosts, listening. You used company accounts, Namjoon guessed, piecing it together. You sent her money. Jungkook nodded. Not a lot, just enough to cover some legal help. But someone found out, and then she disappeared. Disappeared? Taehyung repeated, alarm rising. Gone, Jungkook said. She never showed up again. No calls. Her SNS wiped. I think someone made her vanish. The room dropped into a thick silence. Yoongi leaned forward. And you didn't say anything? I thought they'd think I leaked something, or that I used her. I didn't. I just wanted to help. Jimin scoffed bitterly. And instead, you buried it and let us bleed. There's more, Jungkook said, his voice hoarse. That hallway camera, I never noticed it, but someone did. Someone saved that footage and waited. Taehyung frowned. Waited for what? To use it, Yoongi said grimly. At the perfect time. Namjoon exhaled slowly, piecing together what they all feared. This isn't random. This is a takedown. And they're starting with you, Jimin added coldly, though the rage in his voice had dulled into something more like despair. But we'll all fall with you, and you still didn't trust us enough to stop it. Jungkook's knees buckled slightly. He sat on the floor, head in his hands, unable to breathe through the crushing guilt. I thought I could handle it. I thought if I just kept quiet it would go away. Nothing goes away, Yoongi said. Not in this world, not when people are watching, waiting. The lights flickered again. A thunderclap boomed through the city. Then another phone buzzed. Taehyung picked it up. One notification. No sender, no subject. Just a file. He opened it. Froze. Hyung, he whispered. There's another one. Everyone turned. This video wasn't of Jungkook. It was of all of them. Together, in a back room at an overseas hotel, a night they thought was private. The audio was muffled, but their faces were clear, their words sheeted. Hybe's hiding the numbers. They want us to push a new group. They don't care if we burn out. We should walk, all of us, leave. Namjoon's face turned to stone. That was 3 years ago. They've been collecting on us, Hoseok said, voice low. Waiting for the right storm. Taehyung stared at the phone, then up at the others. And now it's here. Outside, the sky split open. Lightning carved across the skyline. Sirens howled in the distance. The city trembled beneath the weight of secrets not meant to surface. Inside, 7 men stared into the abyss of something bigger than scandal. This wasn't just betrayal. It was war. And someone who once stood close to them, someone who once called them family, was pulling every string. They just didn't know who. Not yet. The elevator groaned as it descended into the underground level of Hybe's main tower. 7 men world famous, exhausted, betrayed stood together, but miles apart in silence. The air was thick with tension, the kind that doesn't just live in the moment, but burrows into the bones. No one spoke, no one breathed too loud. Even the hum of the floor lights felt accusatory. When the doors slid open, they stepped into a room none of them had entered in years, a high-security conference chamber used only when something went catastrophically wrong. The last time they had sat here was after the first Sasang breach into their dorms. This time, it was different. This time, the threat was coming from inside. The long obsidian table, cold and gleaming like an executioner's blade, stretched before them. At the head sat Hybe's CEO, flanked by security officers, PR executives, and legal counsel. There were folders thick ones placed in front of each member's seat. Namjoon sat first, nodding tightly to the CEO. The rest followed, stiff and unreadable. Even Jungkook kept his gaze forward, despite the firestorm of headlines, speculation, and rumors that now surrounded his name like a noose. "You all know why you're here," the CEO began, his voice low, tight. "We have a leak, and it's not from our staff." A chill went through the room. "It's one of us," Yoongi said. The CEO didn't deny it. "Every external avenue has been cleared. The time-stamped files footage, audio, private dorm surveillance scene of it could have been accessed without someone with internal permissions. All 7 of you have those." Silence. Jimin leaned back, his voice cold and sharp. "You're saying one of us did this?" "I'm not saying anything. The data is," the CEO replied. "But you're not just artists. You're stakeholders, co-owners. And what happens next, how we deal with this, will define the legacy of BTS. Jungkook shifted, hands tightening on the folder in front of him. "So what? We sit here and point fingers until someone breaks?" "We already are broken," Taehyung said quietly. Namjoon looked up. "Let's talk about the latest file. Who had access to that hotel room recording?" "Only us," Hosok said. "There were no staff in the room. We checked the door twice." "And yet it's been leaked," Namjoon said. "Someone in this room has either been recording us for years or had access to someone who was." Taehyung's eyes narrowed. "You're suggesting we've been spied on by our own?" Jimin stood abruptly, pacing. No, this doesn't make sense. We've lived together for over a decade. We've bled together. We've fought. Yes, but we've never. "We have," Yoongi interrupted, his voice calm but heavy. "We just never admitted it." Eyes turned. "After our second world tour, remember? The late-night calls from the company about image control, the disappearing phones? I thought it was management tightening the leash." He looked around. "But now I wonder if someone was already building a case." Namjoon opened his folder. Inside were logs, dozens of them. Every time a device linked to their private network uploaded encrypted data to an untraceable IP. "This is months of intel," he said. "Someone's been planning this carefully." The CEO leaned forward. "We need full cooperation. Phones, tablets, cloud drives, all of it, now." No one moved. "Seriously?" Jimin scoffed. "After everything, you think we'd hide our tech now?" "We're not here because of what's fair," the CEO said. "We're here because someone made a choice that could destroy everything we built." The tension fractured like glass. Yoongi reached into his pocket and threw his phone onto the table. "Take it." One by one, they followed. Namjoon, Hoseok, Jimin, even Jungkook. Only Taehyung hesitated. All eyes turned to him. His jaw tightened. His hands were still. "Taehyung?" Namjoon said, voice cautious. Taehyung looked at each of them, eyes searching not with guilt, but with disbelief. "You think it's me?" "No one's saying that," Yoongi said. "But you're looking at me like it is." "You haven't been yourself lately," Jimin said carefully. "And you have?" Taehyung shot back. "You've been walking around like a ticking bomb, Jimin. Jungkook's a shell. Yoongi's been disappearing at night. Hosok hasn't slept more than 2 hours in days. And Namjoon..." He turned to their leader. "You've been acting like a politician more than a brother." "Because I have to," Namjoon replied. "Because someone has to keep this from exploding." Taehyung pulled out his phone slowly. "I didn't betray you," he said, "but I'm starting to wonder if we all did." The phone hit the table. The forensic team began its sweep. Silence fell again, stretching out painfully as one by one, they were escorted to separate rooms for questioning. Jungkook sat alone in a dimly lit interview room, head in his hands. Across from him, a company lawyer watched him silently. "You helped that girl," the lawyer said. "But why didn't you report her disappearance?" "Because I was afraid they'd blame me." "Why?" Jungkook looked up, eyes red. Because someone told her I would. What do you mean? She said, if anything happened to her, I should check the inside first. The lawyer frowned. She meant Hybe? No, Jungkook said. She meant BTS. Back in the hallway, Jimin was pacing, fists clenched, eyes darting like he was chasing ghosts. Namjoon approached him quietly. You okay? Do you think it's true? Jimin asked, voice ragged. That it could be one of us? I don't want to believe it, Namjoon said, but the evidence doesn't lie. I swear if it's real if someone really did this. Jimin stopped, breathing hard. I don't know if I can forgive that. Namjoon said nothing, but in his pocket, his own phone vibrated. One message, no sender. It wasn't one of them, it was someone you trusted. He stared at it, pulse quickening. He didn't show the others, not yet. Because if it was someone he trusted, then it wasn't over. It was just beginning. Far from the tower, in a small apartment above a convenience store, a figure sipped tea as they watched the chaos unfold on multiple screens. Audio waveforms danced, headlines scrolled. Private footage queued for upload. Their finger hovered over the next file. This one was different. This one was from a private dinner. A conversation about contract renewals, about going solo, about walking away from it all. And it had Jin's voice. Smiling, they pressed play. Let me speak. The voice deep, resonant, quiet, but commanding cut through the static of rage and suspicion like a blade. Jin stood in the entrance of the room that had become their battleground, his military uniform damp from the rain, boots still wet, hair unstyled, face exhausted but unwavering. He had returned without warning, summoned by a fire too hot to ignore, a family that was burning from the inside out. The others turned, some startled, some frozen. It had been nearly a year. They had written him letters, sent photos, promised they were holding it down. But the moment he stepped into the room, it was clear he wasn't returning to BTS as it once was. He was returning to a battlefield. Sok Jin-hyung? Jungkook stood slowly, as if seeing a ghost. I came back because the headlines told me you were collapsing, Jin said. His voice wasn't angry. It was something worse, disappointed. And now I walk in and feel like I stepped into a grave. Jimin opened his mouth to speak, but Jin lifted a hand. Not aggressively, just firmly. Sit, all of you. They obeyed. Yoongi, the calm eye in their storm, looked at Jin with an unreadable gaze. You saw the videos? Jin nodded. All of them, even the one with my voice. Namjoon flinched. That video recorded over a quiet, confidential dinner in a suite in Tokyo had been the latest to leak. A conversation between Jin and Namjoon about legacy, the toll of fame, and the idea of life after BTS. It wasn't scandalous in the usual sense, but it was raw, human, honest, and in the public eye, it had become betrayal. You weren't supposed to hear that, Namjoon said softly. Jin didn't look away. I wasn't supposed to, but I did, and so did the rest of the world. Taehyung leaned forward, his voice cautious. Do you regret saying it? No, Jin said. I regret that it was recorded. I regret that we can't even speak to each other in private anymore. But what I said? No, because it was the truth. The silence that followed was more honest than any of their recent words. We've all thought about it, Jin continued. Walking away, starting over, being free of the weight this group puts on us. The expectations, the pressure to be perfect. He looked at Jungkook. The fear of letting each other down. Jungkook dropped his eyes, lips pressed tightly together. I saw your video too, Jin said. The hallway, the girl. I didn't. I'm not here to judge you, Jin interrupted. I'm here to remind you. Of what? Jungkook whispered. That we are not just a group, Jin said. We are a pact. We built something bigger than music, bigger than charts. We built trust, and someone broke it. Yoongi folded his arms. We're still waiting on the forensic report, but the leak, it's surgical, timed, precise. Whoever it is knows us, intimately. Jin turned to Namjoon. And you got a message? Namjoon's head snapped up. How do you know that? Because I got one too, Jin said. Same formatting, no sender, just text. He pulled out his phone, turned the screen toward them. The wolf wears the leader's face. The room froze. Namjoon's own message flashed in his mind again. It wasn't one of them. It was someone you trusted. Someone's playing a game, Taehyung said. Yoongi leaned forward. Not a game, a hunt. Then what do they want? Hoseok asked quietly. Money? Attention? What? Destruction, Jin said. They want to tear us apart, not with bullets or scandals, with doubt. And it's working, Jimin murmured. We're falling for it, turning on each other. Taehyung stood, walking slowly toward the window. Rain still poured against the glass, obscuring the city. This doesn't feel random, he said. It's not just old footage, it's intentional, like someone's punishing us. Yoongi's voice was gravel. For what? No one answered. Jin opened the folder he had brought. Inside were military reports, but not just his own. Someone had sent him background checks, emails, personal data, logs of BTS's movements over the past year. He laid them out on the table. This isn't just about Jungkook or a trainee. It's not about contracts. This is calculated revenge. Jungkook stiffened. From who? Jin hesitated, then slid a single photo across the table. A face. One none of them had seen in over 3 years. Kim Ji-woo, former head of security for HYBE, former best friend to several of the staff, a quiet, loyal man who had once driven them to the hospital when Namjoon broke his toe, who had patched up Jimin when he passed out from exhaustion, who had been fired without explanation after an internal auditone none of the members were told about. Why would he do this? Hoseok asked. He didn't take the fall alone, Jin said. He had people with him, people who believed HYBE threw him away. And now he's throwing us away, Jimin said bitterly. Yoongi stood. Then we stop reacting, and we start fighting back. How? Jungkook asked. By remembering who we are, Namjoon said, finally finding his voice again. Not idols, not products, brothers. We get ahead of the leaks. We tell our story, on our own terms. Taehyung turned. Even if it means exposing our flaws? Jin nodded. Especially then. Silence fell again, but this time it wasn't empty. It was filled with a new kind of energy. Purpose. Rage not at each other, but at the real enemy. Outside, thunder cracked again. Inside, BTS stood together not as performers, but as survivors of a war none of them had signed up for. The storm had come for them. And now they would walk into it. Together. Because what was stolen from them wasn't just privacy. It was truth. And they were ready to take it back. The lights dimmed. For a moment, the world held its breath. 75,000 fans packed into the Seoul Olympic Stadium. The final show of the Comeback World Tour wasn't supposed to exist not after the months of leaks, the betrayal, the threat to everything BTS had built. It was meant to end in silence, scandal, scars. But they were here. All of them. Jin, fresh from military discharge, standing at the center with his head bowed. Namjoon to his left, gripping the mic so tightly his knuckles were white. Jimin's gaze scanned the audience, chest rising and falling with sharp, ragged breaths. Yoongi stood with his hands behind his back, a single earpiece in, unmoving like a soldier at attention. Taehyung shifted his weight, eyes distant, shoulders squared. Hoseok rolled his neck, exhaled slowly, his heart beating beneath layers of silk and secrets. And Jungkook stood still facing the crowd, head up, no makeup, no choreography tonight, just a spotlight, and the truth. It wasn't a concert anymore. It was confession. Namjoon stepped forward first, voice echoing through the silence like a wound opening. You know us as BTS. Maybe some of you know our songs, our stories, but you don't know all of it. Jin took over. Months ago, we were betrayed by someone we trusted. Private videos, audio, messages, things meant to stay within our circle were taken and used against us. Jimin's voice was soft, but cut like glass. We turned on each other, we yelled, we accused, we broke. And we thought we might not make it back, Taehyung added. But we did, and not because we're idols or legends or bulletproof. Yoongi looked up. We made it back because we remembered that we're human, and we chose each other again. The screen behind them lit up. No flashy VCRs, no trailers, just their real faces, unrehearsed. Footage from the night Jungkook collapsed in the studio, from the emergency dorm meetings, from the confrontation in Hybe's basement. Even clips of the very first Leak the Hallway, the shouting, the pain. The audience was silent. No screams. Just breathing. And crying. Jungkook stepped forward last, voice quiet, almost inaudible at first. I wanted to protect everyone by keeping my shame to myself. I thought I was doing the right thing, but secrets don't protect love, they poison it. He looked directly into the camera. To the girl I tried to help, I'm sorry I couldn't do more. And to the ones I hurt by hiding it, you were right to be angry. I didn't trust you when I should have. He turned to the others. To my brothers, thank you for not letting me go. The fans, watching in the stadium and around the world, didn't cheer. They cried. Some clasped their hands. Others simply stood, hearts cracked wide open. And then Namjoon said the words no one expected. This is our final performance as BTS's You've Known Us. Shock rippled through the crowd like an earthquake. But it's not the end, Jin said, stepping beside him. It's a reset. We're no longer here to be perfect, Jimin said. We're here to be honest. Taehyung nodded. This isn't goodbye. It's us choosing truth over image, family over industry. Yoongi raised his mic. This is who we are now. And Jungkook, smiling through tears, simply said, this is the real us. The music began. But not a song from the charts. A new one. One they had written together over the past weeks, behind closed doors. No producers, no stylists, just them. The lyrics spoke of betrayal, forgiveness, of running from shadows only to realize that light can come from within. It was raw, imperfect, voices cracked. One of them missed a note. Another stumbled on the lyric. But no one cared. Because, for the first time in a long time, they weren't performing. They were living. As the final note echoed into the night, the stage lights slowly faded not into black, but into sunrise. A soft golden glow that crept over them like a promise. The audience stood in silence for a long time. No encores, no pyrotechnics. Just 7 men standing side by side, bowed low not as idols, but as brothers who had been to hell and come back holding each other's hands. After the show, no press conference was held. No interviews. No statements. Just a single post on their official account. We are not perfect, but we are real, and we are together. Thank you for letting us grow, fall, and come back. BTS. The industry didn't know what to do with it. Critics called it reckless. Corporations called it commercial suicide. But fans? They called it courage. The video stopped leaking. Jiwoo disappeared, his final message an anonymous email to Hybe. I only wanted you to see what you made them become. Now the world has seen it too. And maybe he was right. Maybe it took destruction to reveal something deeper. Years later, when the storm was long past and new names filled the charts, people would still whisper about that final BTS show, the one where they didn't sing for applause, where they didn't dance, where they just stood still and told the truth. And in doing so, created something even stronger than a comeback. They created freedom and love. And the beginning of a second life. Not as idols, but as 7 men who chose to be human, together, until the end.